G'day team, welcome again. I've got the amazing James Matheson with me today from Stripe. Welcome aboard, bro.
Thank you, Lucas. Good to be here.
And I got the feeling this is your first first LinkedIn live.
It is. Yeah, it is. We were just chatting before where I'd used to do, podcasts as well. And so, but it was never live. So yeah, good to be here.
So before we dive into Stripe, I just have to let the world know that I actually have a former Winter Olympian with me today, Freestyle Skiing, man. Let's just quickly dive into that before we dive into Stripe.
Yeah, definitely. It's very recent memory. I miss it a lot. So happy to answer any questions.
What's the most challenging part and the most rewarding part about being an Olympian?
That's a hard question. I would say, for a lot of athletes, especially like a sport like freestyle skiing, it's probably injuries like that you get. I think I was really lucky and I didn't have too many bad ones, but I think for anyone, and you do a sport like skiing, you can land on your head, land on your side. A lot of people have got ACL injuries or back injuries from it, so I'd say that's probably one of the most challenging parts. And then sitting on the sidelines watching everyone compete, that probably is. I would say also, now that I'm thinking about it, time away from friends, family, home. So being a Winter Olympian, meaning we spend 80% of the year away from home because we need to be in the snow, right? And so we do spend our winters. We used to spend our winters in Australia, but then we'd have to spend basically the rest of the year in the Northern Hemisphere, which is great and amazing. But it is sometimes, you do kind of miss family and friends and home. So then on the flip side of that, that is also one of the most rewarding things is you get such a lucky and amazing opportunity to travel the world doing the sport that you love doing. And you see some really amazing places. So I would say that is also one of the best and most rewarding parts.
Double-edged sword.
It is a double-edged sword. And interestingly, like at the very beginning, it's like, that's like the thing that one of the most exciting things is like, I get to go to all these amazing places. But then when you've been in the sport for 10 plus years, there's a time when you actually start thinking about family and your time away. So it's an interesting balance, I would say. But then also just generally like being able to do a sport that you love to do at a professional level is amazing. Like I would have been doing it anyway, at least at the beginning, definitely. So you just feel lucky to be able to do it. So
it's next level. It's not just a professional level. Olympian level is like a next level again. So you can't complain about being in that world for a while. Hey,
definitely not. Yeah, definitely not. But it's a great world. And I think similar to the start. We'll probably chat a bit about startups today, but I think it is a very the sport and sort of athletic world is very similar to startups. Like you've got a lot of people who are devoted and committed to whatever it is that their mission is. That's one of the things that kind of like brought me to Stripe, and then specifically working with startups is like you just get to work with people that are really committed to what they do. They're excited to be building or doing whatever they're doing every day, and that's like one of the funnest things to be a part of.
I think that's probably the most connecting thing that you'd probably see, especially from being an athlete, right? Is that you're just focused, and most entrepreneurs or in the tech startup world, they're just focused. They're like nothing else exists their entire life. Similar to you going over to or essentially following Winter around your entire life. Friends, you miss out on friends, you miss out on family, you miss out on that interconnective community that you would normally have. Same as in the startup world. It's like you've only got one focus, and everything else gets left behind for a period of time.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. But at the time, he was almost sort of tunnel vision, and like if you look at like the best of the best, that's what they were able to do. They were able to kind of sacrifice other things, quite extreme at some points in time. Like if you think of recent documentaries on like Michael Jordan of The Last Dance, or like Tiger Woods, the recent ones, like you kind of hear the stories of what they were like. So yeah, definitely.
Well, to be the best in the world, you have to shut out everything else, right? So it's just one of those things. All right, that brings us to your now transition into the corporate world. It's been a fair few years now since you've been out of that space. This entire corporate world, you've already touched on it, being in Stripe and really focusing on helping the startup community. Keen to dive into it. Give us a bit of an overview, who you are, what you do, your role, and then I'll dive in some questions for you.
Yeah, for sure. So I work in specifically the startups team, but in the go-to-market team. So I'm in the sales team based in Sydney with Stripe. So I work with specifically funded startups, bootstrap startups, and then also, SMBs too, so small to medium businesses, as essentially as like kind of an account manager. both across Australia and New Zealand. And Stripe here, everyone would probably know us as being, an online gateway, but there's a lot of other things that we do at the moment, and we, work with businesses on. So, it's been a very exciting few years. And one of the things that kind of drew me to Stripe really is that feeling of working towards a mission. Everyone's, really excited about what they were doing. They have to move quite quickly. It can be quite intense. And that's what is so exciting about it, I would say.
Well, it's really daunting when you leave a professional career as an athlete, and like this is across the board. I speak to many athletes, on a monthly basis where they have to transition from, doing what they've always done to now working in the corporate world, and that's a very daunting space to be in mentally. And it sounds like you found the perfect fit because you're in that, you're working in the same mindset with startups every day, which is pretty cool.
It takes time. So if there are if any athletes do see this, it's definitely not an easy thing, like transition. So that's what my podcast was on when I first did it. I actually did it a year before I retired from sport, and it was based around the concept of transition. And it has sort of come into the media a bit more recently around that topic of how athletes can transition for life after sport. And it can be really hard, definitely. But finding whatever it is that you love doing, or the next challenge you kind of want to dive into. For me personally, it was Stripe, but it can definitely be really hard.
You think you found your feet now? You're loving where you're at?
Yeah, for me, the most important thing is people, mate. And I would say that, the people here is what drew me in the hiring process, and then also just the people we get to work with every day. They're just great. Like being a part of a team that's really quite, I would say, like mixed in terms of experiences, which just makes like a really rich place to work.
And you're working out at WeWork, right? So it's always fun.
Yeah, as I'm looking out here, so we're working at WeWork, which is great. We have everyone based here, and most of the office is based in Sydney, but we do have quite a few people also based in Melbourne, and then a few other remote Stripes based around other parts of Australia.
And so for those chiming in today, one of the things that we wanted to talk about is, James and I have been working together for a few years now. And one thing that people don't realize is, yes, Stripe is a global organization, but there is a Australian presence. This is why James and the team exist. And their entire goal is just to help us, help startups, help SMBs essentially adopt and grow. So that's what I want to dive into now. Any thoughts or comments on that before I dive into a couple of key points around Stripe and how this is working in the ecosystem?
Yeah, just to, I guess, echo that is like we have, a local presence here. So as I say, we have people based in Sydney, Melbourne, and then a few other remotes. But we do have, sort of a local team here that are really keen and interested to work with all types of businesses here in Australia. Like we've got everything from enterprises working with us to startups, or quite often they'll actually start off as startups with us and then obviously grow through the, kind of different scale. But yeah, we're here and we're happy to be here.
And the purpose of today is to actually get it out there. So anyone who's using Stripe and doesn't have a direct connection with someone, that's what James is for. Or if you're thinking about, migrating into a payment gateway platform, this is where you can, reach out and connect with James directly. So he's kindly given up his time, not just for this, but also for you lovely guys out there in your business. So please do not hesitate to reach out. So what I want to dive into now is what people don't realize of what is possible when using a platform like Stripe. We've been working in this space for many years. I'm going to say 10 plus years. So let's dive into that. It's not just online. What do you mean by Stripe not just being an online payment gateway?
Yeah, so being an online payment gateway is probably what most people think of if you ask them about Stripe. So that's just most obvious example is e-commerce. So, accepting money to buy, let's say a good online. But there's a lot of other things that happen when you have money movement, right? Especially in the online space, but also in person, so physical payments too. And so that's where a lot of other services have kind of been built upon and built around. So, something that we've worked on, Lucas, is our multi-party platform called Connect. So that's if you have to manage pay-ins and also payouts. So that's something that, the likes of DoorDash, Instacart, Uber, Deliveroo all use, and that we've also worked on together. But then there's also in-person payments. So we actually have physical terminals, for Australian consumers, they're most top of mind for them are probably also all the bank terminals, Tyro, for example. So Stripe has their own version of that as well, and it's often quite often it will be white labeled by the likes of Shopify, for example.
Yeah, so it's not just online; it's also in person, and there's multiple different aspects when it comes to being able to use Stripe behind the scenes. And most people don't realize, because it's a massive payment gateway platform globally, and they've done extremely well over the years. You don't even know that you're even using Stripe in the business, and that's the whole point, right? So I want to dive into the enhanced customer journey. Like, the entire purpose of using a platform like Stripe is to enhance the customer journey. It's not about using Stripe for the sake of using Stripe. It's like, how can we enhance the customer journey and make the experience a lot better?
Definitely. Well, I mean, it's to make the end customers, right? So like, we will work with businesses to make their end customers experiences delightful or as fast and easy as possible. So like, a good example at the moment is we work with a lot of SaaS companies to help streamline their billing operations. So obviously, payments are a key part of managing subscription businesses, but there's a whole lot of other steps that you need to take if you're going to manage a recurring billing system. So that's things like retrying failed payments, some form of a customer portal for customers to be able to go in and attach a different payment method, making sure that all the different payment methods are there. So there's a lot of things around subscription business, for example, that you would need. I mean, another good example, I think, is what we worked on, Lucas, is Stripe Connect, which is another word for that is embedded payments. And that's really where you see that white label concept come in, and that's something that's really exciting. And you've seen, I'd say, over the last 10 to 15 years, has seen some amazing companies. So obviously that's the likes of Uber, Instacart, DoorDash. One of the ones that's grown up on Stripe is Shopify, and they're probably like the best example, right? So payments is a very large part of their revenue, but it's also a big part of making their end customers experience is so easy, right? Checking out on Shopify is one of the easiest things ever. It's probably a bit too easy. It's a bit too dangerous.
But I think that's the whole purpose, right? Is that from a consumer point of view, they wouldn't even know that they're even processing their payment through Stripe. To them, it's they're processing it through Shopify. It just happens to be, it's not a Shopify payment system; it's a Stripe payment system. So just that seamless customer journey. And to the 2 points that you just mentioned before, both with Run With and Pivot Sports, is what we've worked on. And so it just allows that seamless process where a player wants to book a court, some of the money has to go to the club that they're booking for, and some of the money has to come to us. And it's similar for running groups and processing payments for runners. So I guess it's just the customers or consumers using technology think it's the business. They don't think it's actually Stripe behind the scene, which is, I think, that's the main purpose. So love it, absolutely love it.
Yeah, it definitely is. It's also I mean, it's sort of both, right? You'd see like a lot of the time it would be in the background, and that's how businesses prefer it. But you do see sometimes where businesses like to partner with us, and so it'll almost be a co-branding. But yeah.
Awesome, man. I won't keep up too much of your time. I know you're a busy boy, but anything you'd like to leave to let people know that you're available, you can be contacted, and what the next steps look like?
Yeah, definitely. So I mean, for anyone listening or anyone that does listen, that they are interested in, let's say, the payments industry, or how your business can actually use payments to either grow revenue or decrease the costs associated with money movement, I would definitely suggest looking at a lot of kind of the new providers. Payments traditionally were seen as being almost like a commodity, but given now that a lot of the Stripe itself and new platforms are entirely built on APIs, so they're API based, meaning you can do a lot of really interesting things. And as I say, the business that we've worked on together, Lucas, previously, that would have been very, very hard to do. And so it's quite exciting. Yeah.
Technically hard to do, many months of development. So no, it's definitely a lot easier now. So please, if you're listening to this, reach out to James. He's here to help your business in Australia to increase both the revenue and streamline the entire process when it comes to payments. So please don't hesitate.
Great. Thanks a lot, Lucas.
Thank you very much, man. Really appreciate being here today.
Awesome. Chat soon.
Cheers.